Well, hello everybody. Here we have a different map for Farming Simulator 11 that I don't know that I'm going to do a series on, but I did want to return to it just a little bit here as we stand in the farmyard at our spawning point here. It is a map, of course, for Farming Simulator 11 called Salem, South Dakota. And I believe it was made by a man by the name of Federal, F-E-T-E-R-L. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I believe the spawning point here is a family farm, so it's based on a real life area, and it's a 4X map, so it is larger than normal by 4 times, and we'll explore it here in a little bit. I guess the reason I wanted to kind of explore it at least one more time or look at it is I once had a farm on here back in the day. I don't know how much time I put into it. It maybe was 100 hours. I mean, it's a huge map, so there's it's a place to sink a lot of time, and you know, this was kind of in the early on days when I was playing Farming Sim. And you know, when I was learning different maps, and somehow I got this one here, and I don't know, I spent a bunch of time on it. In retros, oh, there goes a plane overhead. That's kind of a cool effect that he has on here, moving objects in the map. It just so happens the family farm here is placed close to an airport. I don't think that it is in real life, but it is here in game. But anyway, I spent some time on here. It's sort of a multi-fruit map, although I think the map author kind of uses some clever things to implement it kind of in there. So there also are a bunch of errors, you know, as we look at this here. And I remember this happening last time, early on when I was playing Farming Sim and seeing the log just fill up. I mean, these are recurring errors. You know, if I just put a little X here, we'll see it, yeah, it just zips away. So our log is being filled with this particular error. PhysX warning, static actor moved. And if you know where to look, it's not too hard to fix. But the trouble is, kind of in the early days of Farming Sim, you know, sometimes the log could be helpful in terms of telling you where and what was causing an error. But as you see the error here on your screen, it doesn't tell you where to look at all. It only says something's moving that shouldn't be moving. That's kind of what the static actor moved means. There's an object intended to be put in one position and stay there for the duration of the game, and it's being moved. So there's and back then I didn't know how to fix that. Honestly, the only thing I could think of, because I mean, if you let your log grow and grow and grow, eventually you get the game blows up. And you get kicked out, you lose your save. Well, you don't lose your save. I mean, if you saved right before, you should be okay. But it's not a good idea to have a recurring error happening in-game. It bogs things down and can cause problems. So what I did to kind of solve it or get around it is, because you can still move in here. A lot of times recurring errors, you can't even do anything in-game. But here, I mean, we can jump up and down, we can go in here and do it, and I did back in the day. So what I did is I turned the log off. Well, that's only a band-aid fix, and I finally, now having a little knowledge on how to do it after a number of years, I finally figured out how to get rid of those errors so it should function somewhat cleanly. Anyway, this is a family farm of Mr. Federal, or however you say his last name. probably where he grew up, and kudos to him to make it on a real life area, and maybe just to get a flavor of what it means. I'll just read real quick the maybe let me fly up in the air here. We'll turn on our flight, and of course we have our recurring error, kind of sending it into oblivion. Let me just get up here just a little bit. I'll maybe fly over the house, and we'll look down kind of on the farmstead here. Yeah, you can see kind of the edge of the airport over the runway. There's a purple field here. I think that's trying to be Alpha, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Anyway, here's the federal farmstead, and the documentation that came with the map. It says most of the map is sectioned and broken down into square land tracts. The starting farm is based on my grandpa Federal's farm. Okay, so maybe it wasn't his growing up place, it was his grandfather, as it was in the 1980s, and is 320 acres, probably all the land behind it that we see here. If the 1980s does not suit you, try the Midwestern layout farm, and if you use this modern farm, you might as well farm the whole map. Okay, so that maybe is somewhere else. I'm not sure where it would be on the map. Another farmstead. I think he does have multiple farmsteads built into the map. This farm is based on a layout I did for Sim Tractor in 2009, featuring the cow zone, lots of grain storage, large sheds, and an old, very large gable barn retrofitted into a freestall barn. There is also Cook Farm, which is a 160-acre farm in the 1960s, and the Bees Farm, which is modern, and is about 640 acres. There are many triggers. To find them, use the PDA or look at the included manual. Most of the fields are corn, soybeans, and alfalfa. There are also a couple patches of summer wheat. Swath the wheat into windrows with the included swather and harvest the windrows with the included combine pickup header. The grass in the ditches and pastures is barley reskinned to grass. You can also use the swather to mow this for baling. Remember, it will not regrow since it is barley reskinned. Grass has been reskinned to alfalfa and it regrows forever. Canola has been reskinned to soybeans, so you can use any combine. So you see from this description by the map author that he's kind of cleverly used the game's existing fruits and just repurposed them. Instead of, you won't find canola in the map here, but you will find soybeans. Or now what'll be curious to see, and I don't know that he has something in here to do it, is, when you go to sell rape or soybean, will it show as soybean in the map? Or, we could figure that out real quick here. If we just come over, see there's wheat and canola and corn, potato, sugar beet. Okay, so he has a couple additional crops in here. It'll be interesting to see how those are implemented. But the canola, of course, is going to be soybean. Wheat, I believe, is wheat. But barley, I don't see barley on there. Okay, so there's no place to sell barley. So we probably won't see that in the map because it has been turned into, and I believe we're looking at it right here, just to the upside of those trees. It's been turned into a type of grass that you can bale. So it sounds like there's a small pack of equipment that comes with it, that will help you with the map in terms of harvesting some of these. Although I gotta say, I didn't see all of them in there, and probably depends on where you download the map and which version that you have and so forth. So he continues here in his narrative. Salem is on the southeast side of the map with 2 locations to sell grain, buy seed, spray, and fuel, although they are on the farms too. Head northeast to sell your corn at the ethanol plant if the price is low in Salem. On the north side of the map is a lake based on Lake Vermilion, South Dakota. Visit the truck stop to the east or compete in multiplayer with friends at the mud racing track. If this bores you, visit Sioux Falls, South Dakota's largest city, on the west side. Here you can see Walmart, McDonald's, and of course the mall. There is also an airport to the southwest. Look there for another surprise. And we'll see what that surprise is. But it's interesting, his references in here to north and south and east and west are not true to real life. This map was set up interesting, and I wonder if he did it deliberately this way. I don't know the man. He doesn't leave any notes as to why he set it up this way, but it is totally the opposite of what it is in real life. And as we'll see, as with any map based kind of on a real life area, we're going to find that some creative liberties were taken. For the moment, let me hop real quick out of game and we'll go look at some more details on this. Back in a moment. Okay, here's a website that the map author has that you can see up here at 3D. It's been on the internet forever and a day, but what you will see is the links on here no longer work. You know, I primarily think of this gentleman in the early days of farming sim. I don't know what he's doing now, but I know I played on a Salem, South Dakota map. He also was heavily involved in Sim Tractor, and so I don't know if he modded Sim Tractor, but he was kind of right. Sim Tractor preceded Farming Simulator. Farming Simulator rendered Sim Tractor obsolete. So in the old days, that's kind of what they used to get your farming kick, if you will. And I think you can make your own maps and whatnot in there. I only briefly remember checking out Sim Tractor, and Farming Simulator, of course, I believe is a superior game. But that's where this gentleman started, and he created this area. I'm just kind of highlighting it here on the internet. Salem, South Dakota, where he lived. He also had a couple other maps that I think he built into Farm Sim 11. He also then had some things in Farm Sim 13, and if I recall correctly, he expanded the Salem, South Dakota map into a 16x map, just huge. And he called it East River, West River, South Dakota. And I think a section of this is the Salem, South Dakota map. So, and then he had several others. I don't know if he continued into Farm Sim 15. I don't know who maintains this site or if it's kind of abandoned at this point. But you come on here and it has some narrative on here. I think it's clear at the bottom. Yeah, this is where it all started. So he has, there's links to a Dropbox. That maybe would be the most recent copy, but of course when you click on it, the link has been deleted. So in order to find it, it does happen to be on Mod Hoster, and we'll look at that in a moment. He has some, I'll go to the bottom again. He has some additional literature here, and I'll just read it here real quick as we head over to Mod Hoster. The atmosphere in this map is based on a small family farming during the 1980s in a real place in South Dakota. Multiplayer ready, he says. Map is pretty heavy. Don't know what he means by that. Unless he just means it's a big map. 6-bar gates will not open in multiplayer. Well, they don't open in single player either, if I recall correctly, but you can drive through them. Map has several fruits. You will need multi-fruit equipment. Grass by the roads cannot be mowed. Alfalfa can be mowed, but you need a mower that accepts alfalfa. Then he just asks if anyone knows of a mower that works with alfalfa, please leave a message in the support topic, as I cannot find one. I'm not sure what he's referring to. I don't know if there's, you can go to Facebook maybe. I won't click on his Facebook page at the moment. Maybe there's other more recent info on there. He says you can buy cows. The cow's own is hidden. Let's see, there are some errors in the log that do not affect gameplay. Kind of mentioned that earlier, and it isn't just some errors. It loads your log file. It is a lot of errors because it's a recurring one. But what he's saying is correct. It doesn't affect the gameplay, at least not until it crashes a game. And interestingly, he puts a note here, you may edit this map as you wish, but give proper credit. Do not name your edits version 2, because I plan on releasing a version 2 someday. Alright, so this is kind of where he had it, and he has a lot of credits, I guess, to objects that he used, and as we'll see, some of the objects on here are pretty rudimentary compared to some other maps. And you know, I still take my hat off to the guy for doing it. He successfully created an area that is similar to his home, or where an area that he knew, which is more than I could ever do in a map. So kind of as we were seeing here is a basic PDA map, 4X map. So a regular size map, of course, is going to be about a quarter the size of this. So think big. And of course, where we spawn is this little area right here. I don't know what that yellow thing means, but it is based on a real life area. And I had to do some sleuthing to figure this out. Salem, South Dakota, right here. Let me just raise that up. This is Sioux Falls over here. We can still see Salem. This is Google Earth. But one of the issues is, you know, usually with a farming sim map, they are oriented to the north, meaning they would be turned around somewhat like so. I-90 is very high in the US, and kind of as we would look up here, Canada being up here, well, the rest of the US or whatever up there. The directions that he gives, you know, I-90's to the south. Let's see, Sioux Falls would be over to the east, not the west, as he says. So, you know, at first when I was looking in here, just to try to give my bearings, I eventually figured out I had to turn the whole map to the other orientation. So for whatever reason, he chose to use a south as up orientation versus north, which is more typical. And that's okay, that's his prerogative. So if we, let me just open the PDA app here. He shows Sioux Falls, he shows his family farm, he puts in an airport, there's a secret area down here. Salem, South Dakota is kind of over in the southeast corner of the map. And then there's this lake up here, Lake Vermilion he calls it. And there's a railway there. Some is very true to life, I learned, and some is with artistic license. For example, I saw this section right here is about 640 acres, this one here, and this one here appear fairly true to life. At least it means I was able to find them. So if we go here to Google Earth, you know, here we see I-90. Let's maybe just identify the roads. I-29 is over here, I-90 is here running through there. So when we look on here, this is I-90 up here, I-29 kind of bounds over here, and let's see, returning to Google Earth. If we zoom in closer, we'll see this is Salem, South Dakota. You see Highway 38. Federal also has that on here. This is Highway 38 West. And then this one over here, I think that's Highway 181. So again, we'll look here. We'll zoom in here. Does it tell us? Oh, maybe it's not 180. Highway 81. Is that? Oh, that's a Y. Highway 81. Okay, so I was mistaken. So I-90, 29, 38, and then 81. So we see those broad roads, but then let's just focus here on Federal Farms where it is. You notice the pattern in this. Must be a ditch, a stream of some kind. I don't know what it is. But now, that's kind of the features you look for when you try to find it on a map. Well, here it is. I think this is the Federal Farm right here. And this movement of the stream, kind of the curious bends, if you will, is what he's duplicated here. There it is. And back to here. So, and this is a more recent satellite picture too. So who knows what has happened? You know, here we see a little blip here. We see some property up here. It could be, again, using artistic license that Federal just chose to treat this all as field up here. And you notice he also carved out a farm over here. Kind of put that over here, the Bees or Buys farm. Then this one over here, it appears he skips a section. You know, so this section here is kind of where he was, but then you come over here and you look for other features. Like here's this diagonal, and in a land of squares, you know, finding a diagonal area kind of helps you locate that on the map. And I think you'll see this pattern here. Fremar chemical plant. You see the little dashes here. So let's look at the map. Here's the dashed line, and here's kind of those jags down here for the Cenex plant. And I think he even has that. Well, Fremar chemical plant, maybe Cenex bottom, I don't know. But you see kind of how he's duplicated this here. And, oops. So that's this one here, and I think he scrubbed a couple of the farms, this stuff over here. Then you have the town of Salem proper, or at least, you know, the portion that is this side of 81. Notice kind of the, I don't know if this is a pasture up in here, but you see these jagged lines here. Again, he has duplicated those. You see those jagged lines here. And I don't think it is on the other side of the road that any part of this is duplicated, yet this all looks different. So, you know, it appears, I mean, he attempted to duplicate this section, this one, and this one here. So, and then everything else. Oh, and then Lake Vermilion. Let me go find that. So in the map, we notice kind of up here is where it is, and then it kind of curls off over here, Lake Vermilion. I believe he is attempting to duplicate this area over here. And so, interestingly, he's doing it with an orientation facing this way, as if this is at the top of his map. So he was duplicating areas over. He put it on his map as if it was up here, but in real life it is over here. And of course it has a similar shape to what he gave it, and it even oh, that's a boat. I was thinking it even has an island out there. Maybe the island part is here. There's a little island there, and I think he put that even into the map. Where's Salem? Yeah, I get lost here, kind of looking where I'm at. So There's the little island. It isn't quite true to real life, but that's how he chose to put that up here. Sioux Falls is over here. It's nowhere near as close in real life to Federal Farms as it appears on here. So I think it's just a representation. That's just what he chose to do. And so, like I say, these sections are fairly true to life. So everything else, I think, is somewhat artistic license. And we read kind of the narrative for his map as to what some of the things are. So that he put in here. The surprise that's, and I don't mean to spoil this for anyone in particular, but since I know the odds of anyone downloading this thing and playing it are slim and none, even though I'll put a link to all this in the description. The surprise is kind of interesting because you see down here in this corner, I don't know if we can zoom in. Yeah, we can zoom in a little bit. This area, you see this line here, this gray line, we've maybe all seen it before, especially in some of the older maps. It is very hard, as we all know, to make a clean map border. You know, if it's an island in the ocean or whatever, it's easy, because you got that big old water plane that extends on forever, and all you got to do is create the land. You have the border of your map all taken care of for you because it's just water. It's really easy. But when you plunk down a map, you know, that's in the middle of a real life area and there's land all around it, well, then you have a challenge to create a border. So all around it, there is a border. I don't know if he created it, took pictures. I think he said somewhere in his notes that he took pictures all over Salem, South Dakota of buildings and whatnot. And I'm assuming he attempted to duplicate some of those in the map. But anyways, I digress. This gray line is a border, just like there's borders around the map that have something printed on them. You know, there's trees printed on it, there's other buildings printed on it, so forth and so on. Well, there's also a border jammed right into the map here. So if you were standing over here on this I-29 South and you looked over this way, you would see a border. And I guess to help you suspend reality, you're just going along in the country, nothing to see here, nothing on the other side of the border, whatever. But there are certain areas where you can hop to the airport, between the farm and the airport, and then we'll take you over here. And I guess you pretend you fly a plane, that if you get tired of farm life or what have you and want to go to Florida, kind of down south, if you will, to get away for the winter, well, then you come to the airport, you go into the teleport thing, and it drops you over here into Florida. And so you come down into here, and he makes an attempt to have everything look different. There's this is sand, I think. Here there's a beach, there are palm trees around. I think there's even an orange orchard somewhere in here that you can visit. You can't pick them or whatever. But that's kind of the surprise it's built into the map. And it's kind of clever. You know, on the other side here, you of course see the border. And on this side, it looks entirely different than it does on this side here, because you're supposed to pretend you're in Florida. And you know, I got to give the guy credit for trying to put something like that into a map. That is really clever, and it's extremely hard to pull off. And you know, when someone looks at it, you know, maybe a person would criticize and say, well, you can still tell something's there. Well, okay. I think the guy did as best he could with the tools that he had at his disposal. And I gotta say, I don't know that many maps attempt to put kind of a secret area in there. I know some other maps, you know, will have things built into them, different areas you can go to. But this one here attempted to wall it off and call it its own separate state even. But just kind of interesting looking at how he set this up, you know, with part based fairly close to real life, and part with artistic license. And I don't know that I mean, this is kind of just an area you travel to. I don't know that there's anything particular to do. There's like Sioux Falls you can visit. I can't remember if you can sell things over here or just what you can do. Back when I played it, I seem to recall most of the stuff I would sell would be up here to the ethanol plant. You could pick up fuel at the truck stop. I never did really spend any time at the track. I never played it multiplayer. And maybe there's places to sell down here in Salem. So honestly, I never really spent all that much time over here back when I played the map. But I do remember spending some good time on here, and so I thought I would just create a little video on it and kind of share it and showcase it with you all. And unfortunately, or fortunately as the case may be, I don't know, when if I just pulled this up, here in the file, there's no default vehicles to speak of. So when you go in there, it's you have nothing to your name. So you need to start by buying whatever you're going to use, because he didn't provide any equipment at the open. And maybe he didn't because he didn't want to force the player to use, what is European equipment at this time on an American map. That could be. Maybe he wanted you to search for some mods, and he gave a couple to help kind of cut the grass and other things in here. So anyhow, that's kind of just a brief overview of the map and kind of some of its surrounding area. And, maybe one other comment on the PDA while we're looking at it. He helpfully labeled lots of stuff in here. This isn't a traditional PDA map. Back in this era, when you just do a top-down look at something, it doesn't put all these labels in here. So he's just trying to identify in the map, those things that are true to real-life areas. Anyway, thanks for giving this a brief look, and I'm going to come back with a second episode on this same map, and I want to show how that error was taken care of, and I'd like to also describe some of the changes that I made to this particular map that I wouldn't have known how to do back in the day. And make it stable, if you will, for playing, and it gets rid of those errors and hopefully makes it look a little bit better. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Take care. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.